if someone has a property on rent, how is zakat for it calculated? And I will read the question they have asked. For example, they get £5,000 a year. Before it goes into the bank account, money is deducted for repairs. The leftover goes into the bank account. The money is still sitting in the bank account. When it's time to calculate zakat, they give 2.5% of everything that's in the bank account. Is that sufficient, or is there anything else? What about the repair money deducted? Is there zakat on that? Jazakallah. So the first thing to understand regarding a property that is on rent is, number one, is there zakat on the property itself? So the answer to this is that the thing that will be considered is your intention at the time of buying that property. So if when you bought that property, your primary intention was to buy that property for resale, that in the future you will sell that house on for tijarat, then the answer is, then there will be zakat on the property itself. And however, if your primary intention at the time of buying the property was not resale, was not to sell it on, then there will be no zakat on the property itself. And similarly, yesterday I got asked a question, is what if I possess a house, I own a house, a second house rather, and I've not even put it on rent? So again, that clarifies the answer, that if that second house was bought for your own personal use, the primary intention was not to sell it on, then there will be no zakat on it. So that is the first thing that needs to be clarified, that majority of the time when we have a house on rent, it's not really for resale, we have just put it on rent. So there will be no zakat in that situation on the property itself. Now the second question is how to calculate the zakat on the rent. So it will be necessary to pay zakat on the money earned from rent if when added to the rest of one's zakatable assets, which include cash, gold, silver, stocks, merchandise, etc., the total exceeds the nisab, which we mentioned yesterday was about £385. So it exceeds £385 after debts are deducted. So in other words, the rent money alone will not be considered when determining if zakat is necessary on you or not. Rather, the rent will be added with the other assets you possess, and if collectively they exceed the nisab value, then zakat will be necessary. And another misunderstanding lots of people have is generally the money, the rent earned, it goes straight into our bank account, into the bank account that we use on a daily basis. So now there is no need to calculate the rent money by itself again. Rather, for example, the rent money earned over the year was £12,000. That goes into your bank account, and from that bank account you spent for your own personal use, you bought food from it, bought clothes, petrol money, etc., etc. Now when your zakat due date arrives, you will look at how much money is in the bank account plus your other cash in hand, and you will minus it from your debts, and that is what zakat is necessary on. So it is just like another wage that is earned from your job. So there is no need to calculate it separately. So some people, what they see, for example, you earn, like we said, £12,000 from the rent over the year. They've put it into their bank account. They've spent some of that money as well. But what they'll do at the end of the year, when they're calculating their zakat, they'll look at the money that they have in their hand, they'll look at the money in the bank, and then on top of that, for some reason, they'll also add the rent money, £12,000 as well. Whereas that is not the ruling when you have put that in your main bank account. Yes, if for example somebody puts it into a separate bank account which they do not use on a daily basis, and that money is completely untouched, then yes, then what you will do is you will calculate the money from your main bank account, the cash in hands and all the other goods and etc., and then you will also add the money in that separate bank account as well. And here we have the brother that asked the question was about repairs. So let's just say, for example, the zakat due date was the 1st of Ramadan, and the rent earned between the 1st of Ramadan 2022 and the 1st of Ramadan 2023 was, like the brother gave the example himself, was £5,000. And from that £5,000, let's just say £2,000 was spent. Whatever it was spent for, it was used. And on the 1st of Ramadan, when 2023, when his zakat due date has come, in that separate bank account, he only has £3,000 remaining. So zakat will only be necessary on the £3,000 if it exceeds, obviously, when added with all his other goods and minus the debts, and if collectively they surpass the nisab. So hopefully that clarifies that masla. The khulasa of it, and the conclusion again, I will say, is that number one, there is no zakat on the property itself if the primary intention was not resale. And number two, the way you will calculate your zakat on the rent money is if it goes into your normal bank account, then you just, there's no need to do any special calculations. You'll just see how much money I have in that bank account when the zakat due date arrives. And if it's in a separate bank account, then yes, then you will add it on with your other calculations. So hopefully that should clarify that masla as well. We have received